Hi there, welcome to the We Are West Grand Talk Show. My guest today is Sheldon Brenneman. Sheldon, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to have you here. So for our visitors or our viewers who don't know you, maybe tell them a little bit about yourself, what brought you to West Grand, what you teach, those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi guys, so I'm Sheldon Brenneman. I came from Lincoln, Nebraska. Before this, I taught 3 years of 6th grade, about every single subject, and now this year I'm teaching 7th and 8th grade science, as well as science lab, where we're getting ready for our science fair projects, and personal development, which is kind of a school success slash respect and kindness, and just kind of talking about all these different things that make you a successful, just good human being. So yeah,
Awesome.
Came out for the snow and just having fun.
Yeah, wonderful. And now we're finally starting to get some of that. And
Exactly.
So are you a skier, snowboarder?
Skier.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the right place. There's no question about that. So early in my career, I actually was a middle school science teacher. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious to hear from another middle school science teacher. What are you hoping your students gain from science during their time in middle school, and maybe kind of how do you measure or gauge their progress in what you're working towards?
Absolutely. I feel like the biggest thing with science is from day one, you have to start with creating this safe territory. Like, ask questions. Don't be afraid to fail. I want students to be curious. I want them to follow through with those curiosities. I want them to question things. I want them to question the status quo. Why does that take place? And things like that. And we really focus a lot on being able to give a response but have evidence to back that reasoning up, or having some kind of reasoning with their response instead of just saying, I think you're wrong. Well, let's say it respectfully, but then what other evidence do you have to support that? And I think that's the most important. It's just learning how to be a good communicator.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with some of your kids here pretty recently, and they were showing me this project that they had been working on, and they told me about how Tara Sharp from the Kremlin Chamber of Commerce had come in, and they all had to present to her, and there's kind of a contest. So I want to know more about that, and I'm certain our viewers want to know more about that. So let's talk about that project.
Yeah, it was such a fun project. So it was my very first PBL, or project-based learning, and I think one of the first really big long ones for the students as well. So the whole point was we were studying solar patterns, but the question the kids had to ask was, how can we attract tourists to Kremlin? And we kind of focused on how Kremlin sometimes isn't a stop where people stay and stop and spend money. And so how can we get people here, but how can we teach them or educate them about these events as well? So we focused on eclipses, moon phases, seasons, and all of the patterns and the movements that took place. And so the kids, we started by kind of learning the content at first, and then as we were building up this project, we kind of folded in making a budget and a materials list, and how we're going to create a marketing ad for this, because we can't just have an event. We need to entice tourists to come here. And then they had to kind of find a way of, okay, now that we know what event we want to have, how are we going to actually educate them? And that's when I feel like that really authentic learning took place, because if students can explain to somebody else why this is taking place, like, they're becoming the experts, and that's the whole point. And so then at the very end, Tara came in, and students had to give presentations, and they could do it in any style or format they wanted, which was really interesting. We had kiddos that did commercials and people that gave like an oral presentation. We had some students that handed out, they made an itinerary of all of the times and places of the events they're going to do. Some people handed out like pamphlets and things like that. And so the kids really got to blend in their own interests as well as what they were learning. So for example, we had quite a few people that wanted to go like hunting with different moon phases, or fishing with moon phases. We had some people that wanted to go backcountry skiing and explain why seasons take place. There was one group that wanted to do a race, and when they did the race, it's going to be called like running with the moon, or shine bright like the moon, I think it was. And you run the race, and at like each 10th of a mile you had to stop, and you learned about one moon phase, and you were asked some kind of question. And if you got it right, you got to keep going, and if you got the question wrong, you had to do like 10 jumping jacks, and then you kept going. And so it was really fun to see their creativity come out, but also just them learning all of this science and kind of having all this knowledge, and them not realizing that they were doing it all at the same time. And they took ownership and pride with their work and their presentations, and that was kind of the whole point, that we talked about when Tara was here of, don't be so nervous that it's going to hurt you. Some nerves are good because you're growing and you have something, to be proud of. And so since you have this like product to be proud of, have fun with it. And they definitely did.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's so what was maybe some of Tara's takeaways? Did you guys have an opportunity to have a conversation?
We did, yeah. So she really enjoyed it. She loved the idea that we were focusing on having people come to Kremling, and that a lot of the groups kind of talked about like the benefits of hosting this in Kremling. She really talked about how like we are a very fishing and hunting kind of area, like that's what we're popular for. So those events would be really easy. Easier to host. She talked about how a lot of people will travel for races, so to have a race here would be an amazing opportunity. She really kind of gave good feedback to the students. She seemed like she was very impressed with their overall presentations and all of the detail that they had in this. So we've got a couple of groups that want to move forward and see if this can actually take place, which will be interesting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the groups I talked to was one of the ones that she had chosen
Yeah.
as the finalists, and you could really see the level of excitement that they had around it, and maybe even more than that, that level of pride that you're talking about. I mean, they were extremely proud of the work that they had done, and you could see that there was equal ownership throughout the group. It wasn't, this kid did all the work and these other two were along for the ride. It was very evident that all three of them really knew what was going on. It was very exciting. So kudos on that. I think that's really awesome. You mentioned racing, so I'll kind of shift gears a little bit. I know this year you were involved in the Girls on the Run program, and so I'm curious, what compelled you to want to be a part of that? I mean, that's mostly elementary school kids, and you're teaching in the middle school. So what made you want to be a part of that, and what were maybe some of the things that you enjoyed most about being in that program?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. So when we first kind of came out here to figure out if we were moving out here or not, we ventured down to Steamboat, and they had a race, and I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I was in the car and I was getting car crazies, but I figured, I'm going to sign up for this bad boy. And so I did, and I worked really hard, and I ran my very first race a month after moving here. And I just kind of discovered how different running is for every person and how much positivity it can have and positive impact it can have. And when I was student teaching and doing some of my like college work, I was actually in the elementary school and did a lot of like second and third grade things. And so it must have been like that first week back for teachers, and I didn't know who Hannah White was yet, but she said she was a Girls on the Run coach, and I heard good things about Girls on the Run, and so I volunteered to help, and she said, oh my gosh, yes. And so that was awesome. And I liked kind of getting my feet back into my roots a little bit and working in the elementary school, but I also liked that there's this program that just teaches young girls, positive messages, positive self-talk, how to be a friend, how to seek for help. And it was just amazing to see this room full of girls, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, that just learned and had that, like, I can do this attitude. I can challenge through, or I can run through a challenge or an obstacle, and I'm not going to give up, and I can do this. And so I just wanted to be there to kind of promote that healthy talk.
Oh, that's awesome. I enjoy that. This in that fall portion of the year. Every now and again, later part of the evening, just before I'm getting ready to leave, and I look out and you see all these 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade girls out there running along with several of you as teachers, and just knowing that that's such a positive and self-supporting group. I think the benefits of that in the long run are just incredible for those girls to learn to support each other and to be there for each other. I think is just really amazing. So you talk about some of the positive self-talk and some of those kinds of things, and so that actually leads me to the Mighty Mustang wall over here. So we have several Mustang cutouts here with different student names on there. We've got some pictures here. We got Mrs. B's Mighty Mustangs. What's going on here?
Yep, so our Mighty Mustangs, we get 1 Mighty Mustang per class. So for example, I see 7th graders on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I have 2 7th grade classes. So on Wednesdays, I have 2 Mighty Mustangs. And then the same thing holds true with 8th graders. They're just on Tuesdays, Thursdays. So every week we choose some kind of theme. If it's we're trying to show ride, we're looking for people that are engaged in class. This week the 8th graders' thought that whoever earns the Mighty Mustang Award should be someone who's showing really good manners and is engaged in class. So sometimes I pick it if our class kind of needs something to work on. Sometimes I let them pick it just to see where they think their strengths and weaknesses are. And so then it's one student, like I said, per class, and they get to write their name on this Mighty Mustang, and it basically is just some healthy, positive recognition of you're doing what you're doing and you're doing a great job of it. So they write their name up on there and they get to tape it wherever they want, and then we have an instant Polaroid picture or camera, and they take a picture of something that represents what we've learned, however it shows what we've learned and however they want to show it. So for example, let's see, we had one whole class that got a Mighty Mustang Award. We tried a new activity and they rocked it. Like, they blew my expectations away. They were so engaged. It was like a 3-minute activity, but they were so engaged. Their voice level was where it should be. They were having very respectful and scientific conversations of, I agree with you and here's why. And they weren't wasting time, which I was just very, very impressed with. So the whole class got it, so they all signed it, and then the whole class took a selfie in front of these sun gravitational diagrams that we drew using like pencils and rubber bands and things like that. There was another group of girls that wanted to show gravity, because we're talking about gravity, so they took a picture of them jumping, because since we have gravity, we fall back down, and gravity is an attractive force. So they figured, if we didn't have gravity, we'd float on off. And so with each picture, there's also a little caption of how that shows what we've learned. And I like it because then I feel like every kiddo can get recognition somehow. And maybe it's a way that they don't always get recognized, I try to recognize like all different strengths and weaknesses and growth within that. So, every week is a little bit different, but then they have something to show for it and to walk into class and be like, yeah, I got, I earned that. I got that. I have a spot here. I'm seen here. And I think that's really important.
Oh, that's amazing. I just think that's really wonderful. It very much, fits in with that Jocelyn's Renaissance type of environment that we want to have, which is very much that reward, recognize, and reinforce the things that we respect, and that's exactly what you have going there. So I think that's really awesome. I really do. So you're in your first year in West Grand,
yeah,
and obviously you've jumped right in and gotten involved in a lot of different things. So for me, last year it was a lot of learning and getting to know who everybody was, and before you knew it, I found myself using the hashtag We Are West Grand on everything too, and now it's something that is just a part of me. So I'm curious what whatever we're in now, 4 months in to your time here in West Grand, what is the thing that would be your We Are West Grand?
I say faculty for sure. Like, I remember coming in and seeing faculty on the shirts, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool to join staff and faculty because we're all one. Like, I get it. And I don't think I got it. I thought I did, but I didn't understand it. And being a new teacher, like, the faculty here has been phenomenal. On the middle school side and the elementary side, there's not this divide. Like, there's just a, support system always. Like, there's, if it's on our Friday PD days, or if it's in the hall, or whatever it may be, people want to hear what you're doing, and they want to support you, and they want to give you positive feedback. I think even in the times when it's difficult, people want to hear that it's difficult, and they want to be right there next to you, kind of pulling you up by your bootstraps and saying, I got you. I totally understand what you're going through, but we're going to do this. And just having that support and having, just feeling included from day one. And even when I didn't know names or kind of recognized faces and things like that, there's just this, you're part of the team. You're faculty. We are West Grand. And so it's just amazing to walk into a school that day one just had this team environment, and it's just amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think that we've definitely focused on it a lot, but I think there's a combination of we've done a lot of intentional things about building that culture, but then there's some things you can't build, and that's amazing people, and we have amazing people here.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have amazing kids, and when those two things come together, some of the awesome things like you have going on in your classroom are able to happen. So thanks so much for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Episode number 5 is in the books and coming up pretty soon. We'll have some more. Until then, we are West Grand.